Logan Paul sold his Illustrator card for $16 million, and that may have been the final nail in the coffin for what many people think of as Pokemon cards as a hobby. It is no secret that the Pokemon culture of today is vastly different from the Pokemon of my childhood back in the late 90s and early 2000s. The booster packs that I picked up from the local game shop or unwrapped on my birthday hit a dopamine receptor that we didn't even know existed yet. This was such an intoxicating toy for my generation that many schools banned the cards entirely. And this doesn't even get into the Game Boy games that came out around the same time. And this fever shaped the entire millennial generation and the kind of consumption that we see now as normal today. Because today we have Logan Paul setting records for what these pieces of cardboard might be worth, but he is simply a pinnacle of a massive scalper and reseller world that has gotten completely out of control. The behavior we are seeing in stores around these new drops is depressing. We have store employees buying out Pokemon cards before the store opens, people getting physical in Costco over a $40 pack of cards, and a scalper being a sort of flex nowadays. So what happened to the Pokemon of my childhood, and where is this all going next? A huge thank you to Incogni for sponsoring today's video. So we have to clarify before we get into this video that I was obsessed with Pokemon for a moment in my youth, yes. But I didn't go as deep as many people my age have because I grew up in a small town where we couldn't really get cards that easily and my parents hated it, and so I wasn't really allowed to get as fully hooked as I probably wanted to. This disclaimer is here only to explain that this is not going to be a comprehensive breakdown on the Pokemon world from an expert, rather than a retrospective on a chapter of my youth and a peek into the insane world of Pokemon today. Because it is crazy, and this process of making this script was a little disturbing. So I found this Reddit post that kind of perfectly captures what my experience was and the questions that I had about the Pokemon world, having just seen glimmers of this new reality on the internet. I was born in May of 1991, October 1992. I was 8 when Pokemon was just about born and at its height in 1999. Just about the right time. Even without the internet, the lore of the first 151 Pokemon was fun and fairly easy to follow thanks to the official handbooks. And for us at the time, it was truly a treat and an experience to be given an additional 100 every few years. As a kid with limited tech way back when, like myself, living out in sticks, Pokemon was a truly magical experience. Seeing it start with 151 and grow from there was truly something else. But as the years went by, the amount of added Pokemon just got ridiculous and harder to follow. Even by 2006, there was 493 Pokemon total. Not to mention the kids these days have easier access to the internet to get more of these details, and it only got crazier from there. Yes, it certainly did get crazier from there. Let's look at some of the numbers. Today, there is over 1,000 Pokemon in the world, but if you include the various different forms of those Pokemon, the number is about 1,464, according to this one guy's research on Reddit. But then you go into the comments and you see various people talking about gender differences and the fact that shiny versions of those cards is a whole other factor. And then, of course, the 4.2 billion different patterns of Spinda. But the craziest thing is not just the number of characters that are out in the world today, but the number of cards themselves. Because at this point, the game is pretty well rigged. And this is sadly just what it feels like to be online nowadays. You just have to kind of hope that you aren't falling for some type of scam or getting taken advantage of without realizing it. And so, you may want to consider using Incogni to wipe your personal information off the internet so you don't have to worry about general privacy issues, scams, attempts, and identity theft, and more. Like if you're thinking it's time to go through all those pesky promotional emails that are cluttering your inbox, it might actually be a sign to attack it at the source. Do you know what I mean? Every single year, both the number and the scope of data breaches worldwide are rising, and that includes your own data getting breached too. There are hundreds of commercial databases and people search sites out there, and chances are your personal information is being sold or published online without you even knowing about it. The good news is that Incogni reaches out to these data brokers on your behalf, requesting your personal data removal and dealing with any objections on their side. The fact that they can even object is crazy. And with Incogni's custom removals feature in the unlimited plan, plan and family unlimited plan, you can point to any people search site or other website where your personal information is visible, and one of their privacy agents will take care of the rest for you. It's like having a little mini henchman who goes out on the internet and beats people up on your behalf. So go to cogni.com/Hildebrand and use code Hildebrand for 60% off Incogni's annual plan. Think about it this way. If you were to do all of this by yourself, you'd need to repeat the process every few months as data brokers continue collecting your data and creating new records. But with Incogni, the whole process is automated, so you now, finally, will have some time to touch some grass. Once again, that is incogni.com/Hildebrand or use code Hildebrand for 60% off Incogni's annual plan. Thank you once again to Incogni for making this video possible. Now let's get back into it. Okay, so Logan Paul and the armies of resellers that we see online today are the face of the problem with modern Pokemon culture, maybe. But they don't exist without a system that supports them. And today's Pokemon cards seem to be almost designed for these grifters to thrive. See, when I was a kid, opening my booster packs on my birthday or whatever, I had no idea that the odds of me getting a special or shiny card were statistically the best that they were ever going to be. Because what has happened steadily since those glory days, to summarize a bunch of research that a lot of passionate Pokemon enthusiasts have gone through on the internet, is that there has been an increase in the number of special edition cards available, but a massive increase in the number of cards printed too. I found this chart that shows pretty clearly what has happened over time. Down here, not so many cards. Up here, many, many, many cards. Is that 70,000 units of a million cards? Holy shit. What is 70,000 times a million? I don't know how many zeros this is. What is that? It doesn't, I can't even tell. What number is this? 7 billion.
You said 7.5 billion. It's 75 billion. 75 billion Pokemon cards in total. And keep in mind that the majority of those are happening within the past 5 years.
Oh my God.
Between March 2024 and March 2025, there were 10.2 billion Pokemon cards printed just in that 1 year alone.
That's so many, dude.
In 2025, the United States printed between 4.1 billion to 5.9 billion US dollar bills. It's like a possibility in the next decade that there will be more Pokemon cards in circulation than actual cash currency.
I will say though, how often are Pokemon cards just discarded? Such a high proportion of the people handling these cards are under the age of 10 and just snot in them and then put them under their bed or something, and that's not happening as often with cash.
What is happening and what probably will continue to happen is that people are going to value the cards less. There's going to be more and more and more of them, and you just don't need that many energy cards. There's going to be a huge majority of these cards that are literally worthless, actually worth nothing.
Well, a vast majority of them are. There's roughly 10 Pokemon cards for every human on Earth. The value of most of them is going to be not a lot.
Yeah. And what is it that that's kind of a dumb move in some ways. Rolex watches are very highly valued because they don't release them. They don't sell them. They have to be traded amongst rich people and keep gaining value. And Pokemon cards is gone in the complete opposite direction.
But I think the value with the Pokemon cards is the one-off, very rare ones. The more that they make, the more rare the rare cards become, if that makes sense. And so I think that's why they're playing the game in that way.
In an ideal world, that's how they separate the people who treat it as an asset and the people who treat it as a toy, saying oh yeah, we are going to release the Umbreon EX and we're going to be very clear as to how many there are going to be, but we're going to keep the card packs cheap so that the kids can buy them and open them up, and someone who's 6 years old doesn't care if they get an Umbreon EX, they probably just want Pikachu. That's how they separate those two worlds, which will hopefully keep them cheap for the kids that are going to value them for what they are.
And while this could be seen as a natural result of a game's growing popularity, there are some key additional features here that prove that Pokemon has rigged this system to make as much money as possible. And the most clear example of this is the Prismatic Evolution set that was released in 2025 and included a massive number of variations and special illustration rare cards as shown in this list, and the chances to get the holy grail of this set, the Umbreon EX, is roughly 1 in 1400 depending on who you ask. The number goes up and down, which is not inspiring confidence if you are a person that's trying to find the card. To put this in context, apparently back in our day, pulling the most famous card in the entire game, Charizard, was a mere 1 in 45 chance. I remember trying to trade for a physical Pokemon card on the playground when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And like, it was a big freaking deal back then. Like, a Charizard in the real world was like, oh my god, are we gonna actually see one? Like, to even see a Charizard at that point in my life was like kind of a crazy deal. And what we didn't even realize is that it was way crazier than we even realized. If the person that was on the playground when I was 9 years old held onto that Charizard and like didn't sell it, let's see what a Charizard goes for. I mean, a first edition Charizard is like between 20 and 30 grand right now. So there are a lot of people out there that see the Prismatic set as the end of an era for Pokemon as a game because it is truly just designed to be collected. The truth is that these Prismatic sets prove that Pokemon doesn't really need to release cards for the people who play the game of Pokemon anymore. They have just accepted that they make way more money by releasing extremely rare collectible cards with high resale values because that drives more people to purchase more cards to try and find one. This is classic scarcity marketing that we have been seeing with basically every viral sensation over the last 5 years. It's not uncommon now, but the difference is that there is a nostalgic core to Pokemon that makes this so much stronger. So once again, I'm not nerdy about this stuff, so I'm not going to get into the details, but let me put it this way, okay? Releasing a brand new set of cards that comes with some very extremely valuable, rare cards that come with a very low pull rate, and those boxes themselves sell at higher shelf prices than your normal cards, is going to do only one thing: make more money for the company that sells the cards. It's a fucking racket, folks. If you were like, hey, I sell drugs, and you know what? I'm gonna sell these better drugs for way more money, and they're gonna be harder to find, and you can only come to me to get them, and there's no one else out there that makes this shit. So yeah, pay for it. I don't know why I used drugs as a metaphor. That wasn't that creative, but whatever. So all those videos of people barging into a store on delivery day or shoving each other around in a Costco or whatever is a product of the scarcity marketing that they created, yes, but also of the internet age that we live in today. Probably the biggest variation between my experience of Pokemon as a kid in the 90s and the Pokemon experience of today is the internet. One of the biggest ways that the internet changed Pokemon is how people bought and sold the cards. Marketplaces like TCG Player made reselling an activity that anyone could participate in. The same human behavior that got cards banned from schoolyards got centralized and democratized around the world, which only made the behaviors worse and the prices higher. Nowadays, it seems like the fact that scalpers have ruined the Pokemon world is one of the only things that people really know about modern Pokemon. But let me give you some context. For those of you watching this with a birth year starting with a 2 at the front, you probably don't understand this, but like, if you were to buy a bunch of Pokemon cards back in the day, you had to go out and like sell them on the streets or something? Like, you had to go to like the black market to try and get rid of your cards? Like, you just didn't see the mobs of people at Costco because there was no easy way to offload the cards once you got them. Nowadays, people can go and buy a pack of cards or a booster box or whatever, and they can look at the real world price online for how much they could potentially make if they were to turn around and sell it. And so what did that create? Well, a world where scalpers have turned these cards into a legit side hustle. And look, yeah, of course, there have been resale markets for other trendy products in the past, like Labubus and Stanleys or whatever. They're not uncommon, but they're usually pretty short-lived. There was a very narrow window there where people were making a bunch of money buying and selling those Starbucks bear cups that we talked about a little while ago. But that only mattered like a matter of days. But things are very different with Pokemon.
I think what happened with Pokemon is that it became a grifter target. There was always popularity amongst Pokemon as like a cultural phenomenon, but then it got targeted by grifters. I think like rather than the enshittification of Pokemon, this is like the financialization of Pokemon, and that sort of ruined it. I want to see your reaction to this video.
Excuse me.
Putting it in his car with his kid in the car is crazy.
Taking the entire box.
Dude, in front of the mother and her kid.
Yeah.
Who are like trying to buy just like a reasonable amount.
And in front of his kid. Like he's putting it in the cart with his kid in it.
Check his username.
James the Scalper. Oh, he's like, he totally takes pride in it. Oh wait, what's the mom saying to him?
She's literally saying like, oh god, okay, we just need to get some before they're all gone. Oh shit, I guess we should like buy more because he's gonna take them all.
You know what's sad is that kid in the cart is getting none of those. He seems so stoked to see all of those Pokemon cards, and he's just like taking it all in. He is not seeing a damn one of those Pokemon cards in a day. Those are all getting mailed.
The reason why I think that video has like 4.2 million views or something, it is the manifestation of the greed that is going on at a high level at all these companies. Like at a corporate level, that level of greed happens all the time. That's like business as usual. But when you see a person in the real world walk past a mother and their child and start just taking way more than you need and putting it in your cart, it hits this like visceral thing in your body as a human. You're just like, that's wrong. Anyone, you don't even have to know the language. You could be watching as a person who doesn't speak English and you'd be like, oof.
And we're going to talk about the influencers a little bit more in a minute, but we have also, thankfully, institutions that are also doing this, so we can be mad at them as well. GameStop famously became a middleman in all of this to capitalize on the market fever. They marked up individual packs and tacked another $100 onto the standard booster box. Because, why? They could. Because the market demands it. And probably one of the more under-discussed parts of this trend is what this is doing to the smaller game shops that used to be one of the cultural third spaces for nerds to get together and play the game. This guy posts a video of his experience being a store owner, and he was basically saying that he can't get Pokemon in stock because it's just not being offered to him anymore. As a smaller seller, they're literally getting cut out of this market because these bigger stores understand that there's so much more money to be made. And if you're a person who's like, yeah, but whatever, like if I really want cards, I can go and get them from Walmart. It's like, yeah, but where are you gonna play the game? Like if you and your friends wanna go to a third space that isn't your basement or like outside on the street, you need somewhere to play that game. And that's what those small community game stores were all about. And this is the thing now, because the social interactions around this game are also going online as well. See, this image wouldn't exist without the internet. This video of a guy opening 10,000 booster packs doesn't exist without the internet. And of course, Logan Paul selling a card for $16 million does not exist without the internet. And the design of this latest generation of cards perfectly caters to online content, and a type of content in particular that Pokemon already dominates: unboxing videos. I gotta be honest, it is surprisingly entertaining to watch somebody spend a whole bunch of money on a pack and then see if it actually pays off. Like the booster pack, the concept of a bunch of cards arranged in a certain order with varying levels of value associated with them is like brilliant storytelling. Like this guy opens $400 worth of cards or something in this video, and that's pretty standard for his channel. And listen, as a guy who hasn't been into Pokemon for a very long time, this is kind of baffling. It's like moving away from your childhood home only to come back to see that it's turned into a giant metropolis filled with casinos or something. I love it in this video. At one point he goes, man, isn't it crazy that at some point all of these cards were just on store shelves?
You know, the days of like, I don't know, I was looking back at some old videos of like the vlogs and kind of going through, and I don't know, like we used to go to different stores like Target, Walmart, and just have fun and vlog. That's like not a thing anymore, which is actually crazy.
Like all of these cards that we're all freaking the out about, just you could just buy them in a store. Isn't that crazy? But then also I'm like, dude, aren't you kind of part of the problem? Like, you just opened $400 worth of cards on a video. Like, isn't that kind of proof that you're the dude making it bad? Come on. Because look, I'm not saying that all of these creators who are out here making content about Pokemon are scalpers, but if you're buying a bunch of overpriced packs to open on camera or buying 10,000 booster packs to open on stream, you're a part of the problem. The guy who bought Logan Paul's card for $16 million bought it as a part of his quest to collect the uncollectible, which includes a T-Rex fossil and like the friggin' Declaration of Independence or something. This is what Pokemon has become, which is like a wealth status symbol. And I googled to see what fine art kind of sold for in this range, and apparently right now there is a tiny ass painting by Leonardo da Vinci that is expected to sell for roughly the same price as the Pokemon card that we're talking about right now. What are we doing? So when Lou and Matthew and I started talking about this story, we pulled up the Google Trends to see what had been going on since the internet had existed, and it's fascinating. This is the chart for Pokemon card. Pretty interesting, right? You can see that there's a big uptick in volume happening around 2016. That's actually for Pokemon Go, which is a little bit separate. But right after 2020, you see a big spike and it never really goes down from there. However, if you search next Pokemon investing, you will see a big spike right after the prismatic evolution drop in 2025. This is the degradation that we all feel when we look at the Pokemon landscape. It is the financialization of the nostalgia that we all feel around these characters in this world. And listen, I have one more Google Trend chart I want to show you. This is for just the word Pokemon. This chart, outside of this big spike, which as I said is the Pokemon Go phenomenon, which is a whole other story, but what we're looking at is a line that is remarkably consistent. Like really, really consistent over the entirety of the existence of the internet. People have been interested in this culture, in this world, for generations, and they will continue to be because Pokemon has cemented itself into our collective experience. But this is also where I'm a little bit hopeful still, because the big difference between the graphs that I've shown you is greed. The big money, speculative investors and influencers trying to catch the wave is the story that we're telling here in this video, but there's still that undercurrent there that I think will persist beyond the stupidity that we're seeing here. When I was hanging around on the internet for this video, looking at the landscape of Pokemon today, I was actually reassured to see that there are a bunch of people still playing the game of Pokemon, like with other people, on a table with cards. These videos are not going to get the same kind of numbers as the unboxing videos, of course, but there are still people engaging with the game in the way that it was intended to be played. And I think that this is sort of like how football and every other sport has become a cash cow because of these gambling apps. You could probably say that there are more people watching sports as a result of these gambling apps and that they are way more profitable. But those numbers represent a very different kind of person. Someone who is there for an opportunity, not for the love of the game. Millennials who truly loved Pokemon as a kid are now locked out of a commodified housing market, and they are maybe going to use that spending money that they do have on some Pokemon cards to relive the hobby that they forgot about years ago. And yeah, okay, there's a bleak undertone there with the housing thing, of course, but what I think is that this is kind of a bright spot. There is also, amongst all this mindless consumerism, amongst all of this greed pushing the price higher and higher and higher, and that trend line up and up and up, is a whole bunch of people who are going to realize that you can play the game of Pokemon. And you don't actually need to buy the really expensive packs of cards to have fun with your friends in a world that brings back a lot of happy memories. And on this channel, we talk a lot about how nostalgia is being weaponized against my generation in particular, because we're kind of one of the last generations that had a genuine connection to the offline world where trends came and went more organically, I'd like to say. But I think what we're also seeing is a lot of people reverting back to old technologies and old hobbies in earnest, not just buying into the new trends that have been marketed towards them, not going to the movie theater to watch the 4th or 5th frickin' reboot of the show that they loved when they were a kid, but buying old cards, buying old Xboxes, buying old iPods, whipping out CDs, going back to the simplistic more analog ways of enjoying the media that we know we loved. I think a lot of people see something like this happening and they go, oh shit, man, they've ruined Pokemon. They've ruined Pokemon. I'm gonna go out and get some for myself before it's totally gone or something. It's like, what? If the gig is up, don't run in there to see if somebody left change on the ground. Like, just walk away. There is another way to find what you are looking for. And it is not on the shelves. It is not in the forums of people trying to figure out how to make the most money they possibly can off of these cards. You know what I mean? So if you like today's video and you want to see more content like it, deep dives and breakdowns into our weird ass consumer world that we live in today, consider subscribing. And then you will get another episode every single week from your boy. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll see you in the next one.